Good morning, juniors. This is a mini lesson that is supposed to help you determine which of your team's ideas you want to prioritize to pitch to Dearborn next week. Earlier in this project, we've been gathering lots of information to better understand the problems facing Dearborn next. We did that primarily through interviewing, coding our notes, digging deeper and deeper. At this point, you should have narrowed in on a focused key insight. What's the problem that me and my group members have decided we want to help Dearborn Next solve? Now we're moving into the stage where you try to generate as many possible solutions as you can think of to whatever focused problem you are trying to solve for. So let's talk about that. Let's use this sample that I mentioned briefly in class yesterday. Let's say I just got hired at the company of my dreams, but I haven't had a chance to speak with my new boss yet. There's a company picnic this weekend, and I want to try to impress everyone with a dish that I bring without looking like I've tried to do too much. Hopefully I'll get to talk to my boss. Pretty quickly I can think of the standard ideas for dishes I could bring. Maybe I could just bring chips. I've seen people bring those to picnics before. Maybe I'll bring the soda and the drinks. You always need those at a picnic. I know fruit salad is pretty easy to pick up at the grocery store, or maybe this buffalo chicken dip that my sister makes that's pretty good. Even a veggie tray might be a useful thing to bring. Really quickly, I can exhaust myself on what have I seen other people bring or what have I brought in the past to things like this. But I'd also give you the tip of considering collisions. In this picture right here, you have a gigantic anthill and you have a picture of an architect's design for a building. So this particular architect was interested in building a tall building in the desert that would not need to rely extensively on air conditioning. And in order to do so, he studied gigantic anthills around the world and noticed the ways in which the tunnels that the ants dig throughout this anthill weave in all sorts of different directions, creating different types of ventilation, and in even very hot climates, not requiring air conditioning in order to keep the inside of this cool. If it didn't work, then the ants would bake on the inside of it, but it does work. He took these principles that seemed to have nothing to do with the buildings of human buildings and collided them with his designs for a building and was able to design this efficient, larger building that relied on similar principles, which was able to keep the building cool in summer months, even without air conditioning. So this is what we call in design thinking collisions, where you're bringing together ideas that seem like they're separate in order to generate something new in the world. So if I bring that same principle to the list of ideas that I've been thinking about, maybe, I cut away the buffalo chicken one in this one. Maybe I can think of where in the world have I seen people doing something that has impressed me with food? And I can pretty quickly think of Thanksgiving dinners with my in-laws. My father-in-law makes these delicious candied yams that everyone talks about at every single Thanksgiving. I eat entire plates just of that. I could also think of these things called lumpia, which are Filipino egg rolls that my partner makes, that we will hand roll together, my daughter, my partner, and us. And it's like a really great finger food. So it might actually be a good thing to bring to a party like this, even though I've never seen someone eating lumpia at a company picnic. This might be something that I could collide, like my cultural traditions that my partner has with this. But then thinking even further about my own culture, the only example I really have of this where it's like a food that connects me to my ancestral past is these Czech style kolache cookies that my mother taught me how to make when I was younger, that also my grandmother used to make, and my great grandmother taught my mother how to make. And they're pretty easy to roll out, and they're pretty delicious, and they're really unusual looking. So they're a good conversation starter as well. So I think those last three ideas, the candied yams, the lumpia, the kolache, are me trying to collide memories of cultural traditions in my family that could potentially be collided with this brainstormed list of ideas for a solution to my sample problem. I want to pause here and talk about the difference between what I would call a topic and what I would call an idea or a solution. So, for example, if you've written down on your list of ideas words like communication or engagement or support. I would call those topics. Those are the type of things that Dearborn Next actually needs help with. If I go to them and I pitch them, our idea is support. They're not going to know what that means. So that is right now a topic. It's basically you're telling them another problem or saying a slogan to them. That's not an idea or solution yet. If, on the other hand, I say something like, we want you to run monthly community circles, or we want you to invite grads to a sporting event, or we want you to visit Boston area companies with grads. These are solutions that can become full-on pitches and prototypes when you pitch to Dearborn Next. So I just wanted to pause there for a second and say there's a difference between an idea or a solution and a topic. If you find yourself having written down a bunch of words like communication, engagement, support, you're not writing out ideas, you're just writing out slogans. Nice. I have 7 great ideas to solve my problem, and now it is time for me to get to one focused solution. So let's revisit my list of 7 ideas, and let's apply it to this thing that is called a decision matrix. On the decision matrix, you have a y-axis and a x-axis. Let me get the little cursor here. Oh, that's not working. Where's my drawer? It's fine. I'll just keep talking. On the y-axis, going from low to high, you have the value to the company. On the x-axis, I have trouble with x's and s's. On the x-axis, you have feasibility, going from low to high. If something is of high value and of high feasibility, that means it's very useful and very easy to do. If something is low value and low feasibility, that means it is very hard to do and maybe won't even be useful. So what you want to do now is plot your ideas. Where do they fall in terms of how easy is the idea to do? How much value would the idea bring to Dearborn Next? And what you want to determine is, do any of them fall in this top quadrant of your chart? If an idea is easy to do and brings a lot of value, it is an automatic yes. They should have already been doing this idea. If an idea is easy to do, but might not be that valuable, then that's a maybe. That's that bottom right quadrant. If an idea is hard to do, but very valuable, could potentially generate a lot of value to the company, maybe you should do that idea as well. And if an idea is hard to do and actually will not be that useful to the company, then you should not do it. So I've made a decision matrix for myself with those 7 ideas I pitched to you. So in terms of placing each of these ideas, in terms of solving the problem I'm solving for, I'll remind you of the problem. I just got hired at the company of my dreams, but I haven't had a chance to speak with my new boss. There's a company picnic this weekend, and I want to impress everyone with the dish I bring without looking like I'm doing too much. If I bring chips to that is very easy. But in terms of blowing everyone away, in terms of like, ooh, who's the guy who brought the chips? Maybe that's down here. I might say the same thing for drinks, depending on which drinks I bring. Place those in a similar spot. If I bring a fruit salad, everyone likes some pick-in food. This is pretty easy to do. Maybe it has a little bit more value, but I don't think anyone's going to be blown away, and I think that might be true for the veggie trays as well. Now when I get into the ideas where I considered collision, first I had the candied yams, which I'll be honest with you, I've never made before. But I've had candy yams in so many different places, and sometimes they're amazing and sometimes they're awful. And I don't know if my father-in-law is actually going to give me the recipe that he uses to make these in a really amazing way. So I'm worried that these actually will not be that valuable because I might not actually be that good at making them. So I don't think they're that hard to do. But I might say they're like kind of hard for me to make, and whether or not they'll actually be useful, I don't actually know. I'm going to place them here. I don't know how to make them that well, even though I think the recipe is simple, but I don't have the recipe. If they're not good, then they won't bring any value at all. In fact, I'll be embarrassed to talk to people, so I'm going to place candied yams here. Lumpia, on the other hand, is a huge pain to make. You have to hand roll it for hours. I would probably have to get my partner involved, but they are awesome, and I know how to make them, and they're really good. They're great for picnics. I'd put them way up high. Everyone's going to like them, and they're great at picnics, but they're kind of hard to make. So those are also a maybe. Lastly, I have kolache, which is I got to look at the recipe that my mom gave me, but it's pretty simple. You make the dough, you roll the dough flat, you roll up every little things. And when I think about the problem I'm trying to solve for, I want people to come up to me and be like, "Ooh, who are these? What are these? I've never had these before." And kolache are a type of cookie that I'm going to imagine nobody at the picnic has ever eaten before. So I'm going to say these are pretty easy to make for me, and I know they're going to get the thing that I want, which is people to come up to me and talk to me about what are these cookies even. Doing this decision matrix, I can now prioritize which of my ideas has the highest value and the highest feasibility, and I believe that is to make these kolache cookies. So that's the idea I'm going to go with for solving my problem. Clicking back over to our decision matrix, it's time to close out this brief video by explaining what your task to do in class today is. You should write out which problem you are solving for. That should be written out for you. Make a numbered list of ideas and solutions. Remember, consider collisions and shoot to come up with at least 8 ideas. My very first brainstorm, I quickly came up with 4 ideas, but it was only after I considered collisions that I was able to generate 3 ideas, and one of those ideas ended up being the idea that I'm going with. Make sure that you write these ideas out on sticky notes. Ask Mr. Baker, he's in the class, he can give you one. And then lastly, on the whiteboards that are in the classroom, make a decision matrix for you and your teammates and place those sticky notes where you think they belong. By 8:15 when I arrive in class, you should have a completed decision matrix with at least 8 ideas on it, and you should be able to say to me, this is the idea my teammates and I are going with because it has the highest feasibility and the highest value to Dearborn Next. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing what you come up with.